Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I'm a youth services librarian at the Rock Island Public Library, and today's Manga Monday title is Soara and the House of Monsters. And this book is pretty new, came out earlier this year, and the way it works is you meet this young person. Her name is Soara, as you could maybe guess, and she lives in a world in which monsters exist, and for as long as most people can remember, humans and monsters were at war. But the thing that's happened, something has changed now in Soara's time. She is an orphan who was raised by knights, and the whole idea is she was trained from the time she was a young child to be a monster hunter. So she has grown up with the idea that her only value is being strong. That's what she was told by the people who raised her. And so she's determined to be the strongest monster hunter in the kingdom. But literally what happens, like the day she reports to the king to swear her loyalty, he tells her, oh, actually, the monsters wish for our conflict to cease. They must have seen our strength and given up on the whole endeavor. So that's that. Time to celebrate. The war's been called off. And for Soara, it's like, what do you mean called off? Like, I've been training my whole life for this. What do you mean? And she even says, what about my mission? And the king says, you don't need to worry. It's finished, Soara. The war is over. You're free now. You can spend your life happily with family and friends. Go home and live, Soara. Which is a very nice thought, except Soara doesn't have friends or family. Like in this first volume, we don't find out what happened to the knights that raised her. We just know she is on her own. And she travels for several days, gets to this sort of snowy area, and finds herself witnessing a conversation between these three. These are dwarves, and this group of goblins. And you see them there. And so this is a world in which, obviously, fantasy creatures are real. And monsters, let's kind of do some air quotes here, they can encompass a lot of different things. I mean, as far as Soara is concerned, dwarves are, there's a little definition here, humanoid monsters. And among the most talented blacksmiths and craftsmen of the monster world. But to her, okay, even though they look basically human, it's like, well, they're still monsters. But what she learns is these particular dwarves, they've been traveling for a bit. They go throughout the world. And what they do is they build homes for other monsters. Or in many cases, they renovate them. Because when Soara finally talks to this group in chapter 2, like in the first chapter, she basically like watches them as in about a half a day, they renovate this house, which is inhabited by this tribe. And again, they've lived in this place for a long time, but it was in need of some improvements. And so this is what the dwarves do. Basically, they kind of streamline things so that, yes, it's dark, because this is a species that doesn't like too much light, but they need enough light to see. And so this tree, the 30,000-year-old magic tree house, what ends up happening is there's a type of plant in here. There's a couple kinds. First of all, there's this moss that's on the floorboards, and it eats trash. Like, it will eat bones, anything that's like thrown on the ground and just left there. Okay, you have sort of this living carpet that will eat it up. And you have this light. Because of the moist environment, like this tree will absorb moisture from the air and turn it into light. Now, it's not terribly bright, but it's enough to see by, and it's like, hey, you don't have to worry about lighting fires or candles or anything like that. You can just have the light of the tree inside your house. And so, Soara watches this, and she's kind of horrified, because her whole thought is, she's coming from a place of, I spent my whole life training to fight monsters. And so, in this first chapter, she's like, this can't be happening, she's thinking of these things as evil vermin. They're the enemies of humankind. Well, at this point, she begins to talk with the dwarves, because they notice her, like, after this, most of a day of lurking. She talks to them, they confront each other, but the dwarves are already facing another problem. The house they just renovated is too cold. There's not heating for it. It's not adequately warm. And so they end up traveling north to this mountain. And basically, like, in the brief time Soara has talked to the dwarves at this point. I mean, they've kind of gotten a feel for who she is, or, you know, they have a sense. Like, you're about 50 pages in when, like, the dwarves notice, like, okay, this human is still following us. Like, she followed us up the mountain. And she's like, I'm just keeping an eye on you. And at this point, she announces, monsters are dangerous, all of them. And the dwarves look at her, and then they're like, oh, I get it, she's a bigot. Super prejudiced. And it's like stereotyping us. So this dwarf, Kirik, who's kind of the leader of the group, says, hey, you know, I get why you think that. In the past, monsters did try to control the human world. We plundered your homes, we invaded your lands more times than I can count. But then, monsters recognize that, oh wow, houses are great. We love this. This is like what humans have. We just kind of want to turn our homes into the same thing. Like, we don't need to keep doing this war against humans if we can have like similar comforts and amenities. So that is part of why Kirik's whole thing is, okay, so we go around and we remodel houses for different kinds of monsters so that they can have comfortable homes too, and then they don't have any reason to attack humans. Well, I mean, Soara, she is still kind of skeptical of this, but this is Kirik's whole thing. We're not taking homes from humans, we're just improving the homes that monsters already have. And to do this, they literally go up this mountain and create like a lava road. Now, Soara ends up helping them, but only because, I mean, Kirik says, hey, you know, help us out. You've come all this way, you know, why don't you help us do this thing? And she's like, I'd never help you monsters with anything. Like, oh, you know, I bet she's just, you know, she's pretty scrawny. I bet she's just too weak to help anyway. Which, I mean, this is, of course, exactly the sort of thing that would make Soara want to prove her strength. And so, you know, the words, don't ask her for help. She's pathetic. And then immediately she shows, you know, step aside, dwarven weaklings. And she lands this huge blow. And this is what starts the lava going. And in causing this eruption, what happens is you can see the path it takes. Eventually, like, it's going down the mountain, but it's also going underground. And the heat from the lava is such that it's creating this pool under the house. And now they have subfloor heating for this treehouse where the tribe lives. And obviously, this is pretty comfy. Like, the main problem with the house after the remodel was that, oh, it was too cold. It's not anymore. It's great. It's perfectly comfortable. And so Kirik ends up, like, looks at Soara and says, listen up, folks. This human right here is the one who did the work to warm you up. Got that? Thank her properly. And so they're like, hey, come on in, you know, check out the nice warm floor. And eventually, I mean, she falls asleep. Like, she has this dream about her old life. You know, she was told she was useless. She was told her only value was in wielding a sword. And now she finds herself, like, napping in the house of these other non-human creatures. And she thinks, oh, wow, I didn't mean to fall asleep. And also, these other creatures, these non-humans, are showing me kindness in a way I very rarely experienced it before. So, obviously, this is a story where, yes, Soara is going to have to overcome some prejudice that she's been taught throughout her life, but it happens pretty quickly, I think, because she gets to meet these different creatures and see their different homes. And I really love the art for, like, it's sort of like a kind of home remodeling show where you see the before and you see the after, and you can kind of check out all the changes that are made and the improvements that are made by Kirik and his team, and also Soara, who is helping them. Like, she starts to travel along with them because, again, at first she just doesn't have anywhere else to go. But as time passes, you know, close to the end of the first volume, she's starting to really think about how important homes are, not just to humans, but to other species as well. You know, how people, no matter what they look like, oh, yeah, having a home, that's kind of essential to most people's well-being, and I haven't exactly had that before. So what does that mean for me? So if you like fantasy manga, if you look on the back here, you'll see this is kind of, it's similar to how you get, like, the creatures depicted on the back of a volume of Delicious in Dungeon. So you kind of know, okay, these are the different monsters in this book, and you're going to learn about different creatures and their different homes, and it's a lot of fun. So if you enjoy manga, check this out. And thank you for watching. I will see you again next month.